you're anything like me, you get so freaked out by what's to come, by the uncertainty, by the fear of work, by the fear of, am I going to be good enough? By the fear of what's going to happen, by the fear. And God is saying, that will still happen in this world. But put me first. And the shadow of those things won't consume you. It will be so much shorter, so much smaller because you put me first. Seek first the kingdom, all else will follow. I believe every single person has a ministry. Ministry isn't just for preachers and it's not just for pastors. It's the way you shine the light that God gave you through His Spirit in all spaces that He's trusted you to walk. That means you on your college campus. That means you at your corporate job. That means you in high school. That means you with your friends at the bar or the restaurant. That means you wherever you are. You have the responsibility to shine God's light in that space, and you get the chance to. Friend, you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you are made to shine. Friends, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. How we doing? How we rocking and rolling? Per usual, I'm so excited to dive in today. My heart to your heart. I think about this sometimes. I'm like, how cool is it that we're able to connect like this? You know what I mean? Like, some of you I've never met in my entire life. Some of you I've met very briefly. Some of you I've seen you before, but I feel like you have no idea who I am, or you've seen me before, but you feel like I have no idea who you are. I probably do. Or you're someone that I know very well. Funny enough, I tend to get the most nervous for like if I know someone really well and they listen to these, I'm like, man, that's what I'm thinking about as I'm recording these. It's like the people I know really well. Because I think it's one thing if you if like a stranger or someone you don't know like DMs you or comes up to you and is like, hey, you said this thing and it really helped, or but it's another thing like the people that see you day in and day out, the people that like live life with you, when they feel like your character is congruent with what you're trying to bring to the world in like a helpful or beneficial light, like that's what matters the most, and that's what means the most. And it's funny, last week I was in Charleston for my birthday. So this is how Annie Mayfield rock and rolls, right? I'm a big believer in celebrating the entire month for birthdays. People think I'm crazy. People also think I'm extra. People think it's like a, hey, you like to be the center of attention thing. That's actually not the case. I love birthdays, and I make a big deal of birthdays for every person that I'm close with, like it's their birthday, because I feel like birthdays are the greatest reminder of God's grace. So the way I look at birthdays is like, okay, as someone who I like to perform, I like to cross things off the to-do list, I've really struggled with associating my worth with how much like I worked or how much I felt like I earned. Birthdays to me are just this reminder, like, I didn't earn my birth. You didn't earn your birth. Like, none of us earned our way to being born. And that's a really cool reminder. Like, existence itself, I didn't earn it. I was given it. I was gifted it by my Heavenly Father way before my mom and dad even were thinking about having an Annie Mayfield, right? And my birthday is in 2 days. Right now it's April 9th when I'm recording this, and it's April 11th that this, or not this episode's coming out, but that recognizes the person who's behind these episodes was born and coming out of my mom. That was graphic. I didn't mean it to be, but it's just biology, what it was. And so anyways, but I love birthdays because it reminds you, like, I did nothing to earn this life. And so for me, that's such a great reminder. I like it to last the entire month. And every dinner with friends, every dinner with family, every dinner with my boyfriend, like for me, it is a reminder again of Annie, you didn't earn this life. You didn't earn the right to be here. You were gifted it. And so I say all that because last week I went to Charleston with my boyfriend. It was so fun. It was like phase 1 of Operation Annie Birthday Month. And oh my gosh, we just had the best time. I also haven't taken time off of work in so long. And I mean, like, I didn't look at email. I didn't look at Slack. I didn't look at I got off Instagram. So like I didn't look at messages of podcast guests I was trying to coordinate because I typically reach out on Instagram for all the guests that I have. And so I didn't have any access to like, oh, this person got back to me. I need to send them my Calendly. Like none of that. It literally was just like me and him in Charleston. It was so wonderful. And I think, the Wednesday before, so we left on Thursday, and the Wednesday before, you know how we do. I was excited, but I also was only fixated on all there was left to do that I felt like I had no time to do before my time off on Thursday through Sunday. And I was so overwhelmed and I was so stressed out and I was so anxious. And I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. I think a lot of us feel that way at times. Like whether it's the day before you're about to go on PTO and you're trying to get everything all perfect, or even like, I don't know, you're about to go on holiday and you want everything to be perfect, or you want your kids to be perfect and their situation to be perfect, or you just want a day where nothing feels rushed and nothing feels anxiety ridden and like nothing feels like it's just been dipped and doused and slathered and worry and fear and insecurity and pain and like concern. And you're just like, I just need a day of peace and calm. And you even forget what peace feels like because you're just so focused on all that there's left to do and all that there's not done. And the reason I can say this so quickly and eloquently, if you consider what I just said eloquent, is because I get it. Like these are the conversations in my own head every single day. And if you're anything like me, it's like you're already feeling anxious and insecure. And then all of a sudden, maybe that thing you were anxious about, insecure about gets fixed. But there's like 10 other things you recognize you need to be anxious or insecure about. Or you start freaking out about the fact that you're not freaking out about anything because you're like, I know I'm missing something. I know that life is not good enough for me to not be freaking out about something. So I must be freaking out about something. And we all do that. We all do that. Even on, okay, I'm going to expose myself on this, but y'all, we're fam here. This is the Made to Shine fam. So during Charleston, it was Friday. This is so me. But okay, we have a point. We're going to talk about posturing our hearts towards God in seasons where we're going through more anxious times. That's what we're talking about today. So you know that all of this has a conclusion. Last Friday my throat was hurting. And I am one of those annoying people that prides herself and like towards others on the fact I never get sick. I have not been sick since 6th grade. My immune system, freaking dynamite. Like I take care of this honey like no other. And so I take a lot of pride in my immune system. I've been sick as of last week 3 times this year, which is crazy. I'm just not used to it. And so I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to being sick because I'm not used to it. And so on Friday, I woke up and my throat was hurting. I was like, oh no, it's fine. It's just a mentality. I'm fine. Well, my boyfriend and I we were walking around we went to like this beautiful plantation and then we went all around King Street. We clocked like 30K steps that day. Like so many steps. It was amazing. But by 3:00, we had like dinner plans early. It was going to be great. By 3:00, I was getting really worried about my throat. And you know, when you have that thing, like you're trying to enjoy the moment, but it's like that thing in the back of your mind that's making you, it's like the enemy is trying to steal you from this present moment. A lot of us do this with work. It's like you can't be in this moment because your mind is still on work, even though work is and was like ended 3 hours ago. Like you're at dinner with your significant other and you can't stop thinking about work, or you are with a group of friends and you can't stop thinking about what that girl said to you that really hurt your feelings, or you're at something with your family but you can't stop thinking about like that person that said something rude to you on social media. It's like that thing that's just in the back of our minds. My throat kept bothering me, and like it wasn't even that crazy. I was like, okay, I think my throat is hurting. But all of a sudden in my mind, it went from my throat is hurting to I think I have throat cancer. Like this is how my mind works. Is I am just like a 0 to 100 kind of girl. And so, oh my gosh, my sweet boyfriend. I was like, so dinner, early dinner. Yeah, we're going to pivot. We're going to pivot. We're going to get a new reservation. This is so ridiculous. But I have a point to this. I was like, I'm getting a new reservation. I'm just gonna like run over, just jog to this urgent care that I just Googled. And I'm just really quickly gonna have a strep throat test. Like super quick. You go get a sandwich. It will maybe take 10 minutes. Me not thinking how long urgent cares take on a Friday. And so of course urgent care was like, we don't have an appointment for another hour and a half. I was like, okay, no worries. Like Hunter and I, we're great at pivoting. We're going to pivot again. So I like run back to the sandwich shop he was at. I was like, so we're going to pivot again. And we're just going to hang out near College of Charleston before I can go get a strep throat test. I ended up having strep throat. So I wasn't crazy. But all of that to say, my body and my mind had been so oriented on stress and worry and concern that week, that Monday through Wednesday before I left on PTO, that even when I was on PTO, that was my default nature. My default nature wasn't the muscle conditioning of like to have a good time, to be present. It was what's wrong? Like what should I be freaking out about right now? And so many of us, we have gotten these muscles, like in our body, we have like small muscles and we have major muscles. Like our major muscles are like our glutes or biceps, but we have all of these like smaller muscles too that we don't necessarily look at all the time, or even we know that they exist. It's like, when you play a sport and you're like sore after and you're thinking, I didn't even know those muscles existed. We have tons of tiny of those muscles. And I think for us, like the worry muscle, the stress muscle, the concern muscle, all these tiny little muscles that we don't even really see every day, they're so freaking strong in our life. And they are literally, without us recognizing it or not, they're the ones that are controlling our body and our mind and our heart and how we experience things when we're not in the middle of those things that cause us stress. And last week, it was on Wednesday. No. It was Thursday, because I took Thursday off, but we ended up, Hunter did not. So we left like later Thursday, but I needed Thursday off too, just to get my mind straight. When it's like, for my working people out there, there's a difference between like being able to get the work done that you need to get work done for, that no one, like you don't want anyone bothering you while you're doing it, and then actually doing your job. Because my actual job is meetings all day, but that's like half my job. The other half is all the operational stuff. And so I needed a day of like working, but not be like working on PTO so no one could bother me. And so I did that on Thursday. Then I went on this walk, and during the walk, I was just crying. It was a whole vibe. I was the only one in the gym, so it was okay. But I was crying because I was like, God, I feel like I am running this race and going as hard as I can, but I'm on a treadmill and like I'm not actually getting anywhere. And that's an awful feeling. It's an awful feeling to feel like you're giving 100% and 100%, but you're not actually getting anywhere. And even the moments I feel like I've gotten somewhere in my corporate career, or even on like this podcast, it's so fleeting. It's like it's so fleeting. And I felt like the good Lord just hit me like, yeah, Annie, because you're trying to use me as a means to an end. Like you're trying to use like you're looking at me as the means to an end, not the end. You're looking at corporate as the means to an end, not me as the end. You're looking at this podcast as a means to an end, not me as the end. And I think that a lot of us do that. We look at our lives as the end instead of looking at Jesus as the end. And the reason I feel like I've been so feeling like a rat race and feeling unfulfilled a lot of times is because I'm putting my fulfillment in these things. Whereas corporate, podcasting, working out, being a girlfriend, being a friend, being a daughter, those aren't the end for me. Those are a means to an end. That's a vehicle that Jesus uses for me to experience more of him, but it's not my end. And so regardless if I close a big deal or I don't, if my podcast episode hits a certain number of downloads or doesn't, if my social media post hits a certain amount of likes or doesn't, if my sister's mad at me, which is accurate right now, or isn't, if my boyfriend and I are on good terms or if we aren't, like, those aren't the end. That's a means to an end. And I recognize, like, that's the essence of being here on this earth. There's nothing on this earth that's going to be your end. And that longing for fulfillment, that longing for something more, you know, that feeling, it's like you finally got what you were wanting and you're like, but is this it? Like you finally got the husband, but wait, is this it? You finally got the job promotion, but wait, is this it? It's like we were expecting all these things to complete us and then we get it and we're like, wait, I'm not complete though. I think there's a couple of routes you could take there. You could conclude from that you did something wrong and that you achieved it in the wrong way, or this wasn't the thing that you actually wanted and there's something else to go for. Or you could use that as your very evidence that God exists and that we were designed to be completed by something so much greater than us and so much greater than this world can offer, so much greater than our discipline, so much greater than our ability to hold up a routine, so much greater than our ability to achieve something in a job, so much greater than our ability to achieve a relationship or a status or a social media update or the affirmation of what other people think about us, or our ability to perfectly communicate how we're feeling or what we're doing or the questions that we have or what we think we deserve or what we deserve. Like, our completion is something so much higher than that. And that just hit me last week. Like, Annie, all this unfulfillment you're feeling in a season of life where everything you once wanted, you basically have right now. Like, most things you've been praying about, to be able to speak every single week, to be able to speak publicly in front of people and on the podcast, to be able to have financial freedom, to be able to have someone that you love and that loves you and cherishes you, to be able to be with friends, be with family, like, you be healthy and not be slave to a workout addiction or food addiction. Like, all of these things I once prayed for, I now have. And last week I was feeling so unfulfilled. And that's where it's like, again, going back to God just hit me with, Annie, like, yeah, because those aren't your end. I am your end. God will always be my end. He will always be your end. And when we try to put our end, what's your end? Your end is where you ultimately get all your worth and fulfillment from. When you put that in work or a relationship or health, things that are fleeting, because they're fleeting. I was talking to someone the other day who just a couple of months ago, I was so envious of her life. I felt like she had everything. You know, like I felt like she had the marriage thing figured out. She had this promotion thing figured out. She had like perfect health. She looked like Barbie, you know, like she just, to me, in my eyes, she had it all. And she called me up the other day and she's miserable at her job. And I am now in a place where I'm happy with my job and I'm happy with my relationship and I'm happy with my friendships and I'm happy with my relationship with food and exercise. And like, it's just so funny how fleeting life is and how Ecclesiastes reminds us, like, there's a season for everything. There's always a season for everything, but your end is constant. It's God. And last week, I was thinking about my shadow seasons. I was watching the Whoa That's Good podcast with the girls, Gone Bible. It was so good. And they were talking about like their seasons in life where they felt like there have been a lot of shadows. And I don't know why, but this was the walk I was crying on. And I was like, I'm yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Psalms 23 came to mind. And all of a sudden I got really interested. I felt like the Spirit was just like, look up what's required for a shadow to exist. And y'all, this was such a vibe. I was in the gym by myself and I was like crying. And for some reason I knew once I looked this up, I'm going to cry even harder. So I went into the bathroom. This is a vibe. This was last Thursday morning. I went into the bathroom of this gym and I literally got on the floor of one of the shower stalls. And I was like on my phone Googling what's required for a shadow, like crying. And I'll read you guys. It hit me so hard. Shadows occur only when the sun is visible in the sky and an object blocks the sunlight. That was the first thing that hit me. So many times we're walking through a shadow season. Your shadow season might be something you expected, like you knew from the diagnosis a few months ago, you knew this was coming, but it still is really hard. It might be something you didn't expect. Like you didn't expect for them to make that announcement at work. You didn't expect for that friend to leave state so quickly and move so quickly. You didn't expect to feel so heartbroken from that layoff. You didn't expect your family to block you out like they did. Shadows could be things we expected, things we didn't expect, things that happened to us, things we got ourselves into. Seasons that take us by surprise, or seasons that we knew were coming but still were really hard. What's required for a shadow to exist? They only occur when the sun is visible in the sky and an object blocks the sunlight. Your shadow season, I think sometimes we think when we're going through a tough season and a dark season, it means God's not with us. You guys, shadows only occur when the sun is visible in the sky. You may be going through a dark season, a shadow season, but let that be your very evidence that God is still with you. Because you can't have a shadow season unless the sun is still visible. You don't have shadows in complete darkness. They're only visible when light is present. How amazing is that? Like, your tough shadow season right now is your evidence that God is still with you. That hit me. Like, I can't be going through this shady time unless God was still with me. It's not possible. The other thing that hit me so much was the light, the sun for a shadow. A shadow can only be visible when the sun is in one of two positions. One, it's above the object that's blocking it to create the shadow, or it's adjacent to the object blocking it. So yes, the sun is always visible. God's always with you. Now listen to this. The shadow is shorter when the sun is at the highest position. So that would be like noon. So at 12 o'clock, when the sun is the highest position in the clouds, the shadow is shorter. Then when the shadow is adjacent to the object blocking it, the shadow is a lot longer. So when the sun is adjacent to the object blocking it, the shadow is a lot longer. When the sun is at its highest position, the shadow is a lot shorter. Why did that make me sob? When God is at the highest point of my attention in my life, my shadows are so much shorter than when I put God adjacent to all the other things that are blocking his light in my life. Work, relationships, body image, health, concern, worry, fear. When I put God adjacent to the level of all these other idols that I'm worshiping, my shadows are longer. But when God is at the highest point of my attention, it's not that worry, concern, anxiety doesn't exist, but the shadows are shorter. They don't seem as scary. They're not as big. They're not as terrifying. Have you ever seen scary movies? And some of the opening credits, it's like you see the shadow of this scary thing. Well, I think fear, insecurity, anxiety, we give it this massive shadow and we get so scared by it. But the reason that shadow is so long is because we're putting our God adjacent to the level of our fear. When you put God at the top, its shadow is so tiny. It's like those movies where, what was it? Oh my gosh, what movie was this? No, it was a book. It was a book. It was like this dragon book. It was some kid's book I was reading, but basically it was like there was a house with a dragon that lived in it, and the dragon had this long shadow, and the little kid was like, "Mom, I see a dragon," and the mom was like, "Nope, that doesn't exist." And each time she said it doesn't exist, basically it was talking about mental health, like how we don't recognize mental health. The dragon got bigger and bigger and bigger, and its shadow got bigger and bigger and bigger. And oftentimes it's the shadow we're more afraid of than the thing itself. But when you actually look at the thing itself, it's like, that's not that real. It's like the enemy roars like a lion, but it's not a lion. It's like a lion. It sounds big, it sounds scary, but it doesn't have any power on you because of our God. But are you placing God at the highest point in your life? How do you do that? God tells us, seek first the kingdom, all else will follow. Does he tell us that because he wants attention and because he can't feel good about himself until we're giving him attention? No, he knows us. He knows our nature because he created us. He knows if you put me adjacent to all these other things in your life that you're seeking, fame, fortune, friends, body image, security, work confirmation, all this stuff, you're going to be fearful. You're going to live worried. You're going to live concerned. You're going to live scared. And God doesn't want us to live that way. That's why he tells us, put me at the top of your attention. Seek first the kingdom. All else will follow. He tells us that because he knows that we need to do that so that the shadows of fear, the shadows of worry, the shadows of anxiety aren't so big that we get so scared. He tells us that. He tells us that. You guys, if you're anything like me, you get so freaked out by what's to come, by the uncertainty, by the fear of work, by the fear of, am I going to be good enough? By the fear of what's going to happen, by the fear. And God is saying, that will still happen in this world. But put me first. And the shadow of those things won't consume you. It will be so much shorter, so much smaller because you put me first. Seek first the kingdom, all else will follow. It's a promise. It's a promise. Lord Jesus, I pray you soften our hearts. I pray we recognize that it's not about doing things right or getting it wrong or doing everything perfectly. It's not about living our lives in such a way that we are silencing fear and silencing insecurity and silencing even our concern that we're not worshiping you or living with you the right way. It's more so about just focusing on you, who you are. You are the King of Kings. You are the Prince of Peace. You are the Lord of Lords. You are Redeemer, Creator, Provider. You are Protector. You call us yours. You call us chosen. You call us valuable. It's less about looking at our deficiency and our gaps and more about looking about where you cover all of our gaps with your grace. You are the Lord that beat death and rose again, God. And as we are reminded, me with my birthday in 2 days and in every season, we couldn't earn your love. We couldn't earn your grace. You gave us that. You gifted us that. Not to hold over our heads, but to help us live in that so that in everything we do, we can put your love and your grace and your kindness and your peace and the Son of Man up top at our highest focus of attention. so that our shadows of fear and anxiety and a busy schedule and concern and what other people think about us and what's going to happen and in our numbness and our fear, all of that is shorter. Not that it's gone, but it's shorter and it doesn't consume us. And so, Lord, I pray you give us a practical and tangible heart that we can hold on to that desires to put you first. Lord, I pray for a generation that desires to put you first. Change our desires, God. Change our desires, God. Change our desires, God. So that putting you first isn't a chore. It's something that we are desperate and honored to do every single day. That we read this book, this Bible, not as a textbook, but as a privileged love story that we get to say we're a part of. Help us lift you high, Lord, because we get to. Amen. And I hope that this blessed you and encouraged you, reminded you that God gave you a unique light, and it is your job to shine it in this world because we need you to. That being said, if you were blessed by this message and you can think of anybody else that also needs this type of encouragement, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, leave me a comment. It helps me out a lot and helps this message that I do believe God gave my heart to share with the world gets out. I hope you have such an amazing rest of your day.